As you've been hearing all morning, a judge has ruled it is unconstitutional for the province to pay for non-Catholic students attending Catholic schools. The ruling was released late yesterday, and it has widespread implications for students and for schools throughout Saskatchewan. Our own Paul Dornstauder has been looking into the ruling, read the whole thing, in fact, and has joined me now. Hi there.
Hey, Sheila.
Most people were watching must-see TV last night.
Well, this was must-read decision time last night.
Wow, 200 and some pages. Tell us about the ruling.
It's only 250. Here are the headlines. Number one, publicly funded Catholic schools in Saskatchewan are protected by the Constitution. But, and here's the big but, public funding of non-Catholic students attending those schools is not. The judge found that the provincial government funding of what it describes as non-minority faith students attending separate schools is a violation of the state's duty of religious neutrality under Section 2 of the Charter of Rights and Freedoms, and it's a violation of equality rights under Section 15.1 of the Charter. And so, lastly, this decision is so groundbreaking, the judge has given the province and its school boards until June 30th of next year to figure it all out because of what he calls the significant repercussions the decision will cause in the province.
Well, significant indeed, and we're already hearing a lot from people about this. And this all started in the little town of Theodore.
Theodore, back in 2003, Sheila, the public school division was dealing with what many communities were dealing with at that point, rural depopulation, student enrollment decreasing. It was closing schools as it felt it had to in order to stay viable. One of those schools that was slated for closure was in Theodore. People in the community really hated that idea. They got together. They decided to form a separate school, a Catholic school. So a school in Theodore continued to operate under the auspices of a Catholic board, even though the public board was wanting to close it down and move all those students up the road to Springside. The decision to open the separate school, needless to say, attracted the attention of the local public board. It went to court, and that led to lawsuit that resulted in the decision that we see in front of us today.
So at the heart of it, the issues are?
So at the micro issue in Theodore, the issue is that the public school board argued that at the time the school was created, Catholics formed 31% of school enrollment, and at the time of the trial, 9 out of 26 students in the Theodore school were Catholic. So there was a feeling among some people in the area that this was just an end run around a decision to close a school. But that then created the opportunity to discuss before a judge not only that, but all sorts of issues related to the constitutionality of funding Catholic schools, or specifically funding paying for non-Catholics to attend Catholic schools.
You have non-Catholic kids in Catholic schools for so many reasons. You know, it's the school across the street. My kid was bullied in one school and went to the closest other school. There's so many reasons. Do we have any idea how many kids we're talking about?
It's a funny story, Sheila. We don't. So when you look at the evidence that was brought before the judge, Catholic school boards indicated they don't track the number of Catholic versus non-Catholic students. However, they do count from time to time. So we saw the judge heard some really old numbers out of Saskatoon that suggested several decades ago, perhaps 10 to 12% of students in that division were non-Catholic. There had been evidence presented from a northern school division of upwards of 30% non-Catholic enrollment in a Catholic division. They pointed out, though, that much of that elevated enrollment was in a French immersion program. So you run into
That's another big reason, right?
Like
French immersion. Yeah. Lots of questions from listeners, and I don't know if the decision gets into any of this, but Weeby on Twitter asked, does the ruling say anything about students that started at a Catholic school being allowed to finish? Will they be grandfathered in?
The answer to the question is, does the ruling say anything about it? The answer is no. So if you were driving by the legislature last night, you may have noticed lights in the education minister's office burning late into the night. This is so the work on that front is just beginning. Now, some people may want to know, so if you're a non-Catholic parent whose child attends a Catholic school, you may want to know that starting June of next year, June of 2018, what will be the price of admission? It would seem to be, at the very least, a baptismal certificate.
Is does the decision deal with that? How you prove your faith?
The decision deals with that, and the judge accepted evidence presented that a baptismal certificate was a legitimate indicator of faith.
Wow. So any sense of whether an appeal is likely?
Well, so funny thing. So last night we reached out to all the parties involved in this. We reached out to the separate school board, the public school board, or at least their legal teams, as well as the province. All of them are poring over this. Really didn't have much to say. However, we did get an early response from the Catholic School Board Association. And in a written statement, they tell us we're obviously disappointed with the decision. We'll take some time to go over it, consult with our lawyers. They write, this has been a 12-year journey instigated by the public boards, and we don't have much of an appetite to spend more on legal defense. However, we have an obligation to stand up for the constitutional rights of separate school divisions. So we're giving serious considerations to an appeal. In the event of an appeal, a final decision would be a long way down the road.
Wow. Massive implications for so many families.
Interesting times, Sheila.
You bet. Thanks, Paul.
You bet.